Thank you all for being here. You might notice a difference in the voice today. Got a little bit of a virus going on, but we going to mix it up a little bit to start off. I wanted to introduce everyone to a good friend, Jon Berrie, who is a musician and interested in the path and has quite a hero's journey of his own, and that's reflected in his music. So he's going to play some songs today to kind of start us off.
Hey everybody, how's the sound here? Can you hear me all right? All right. Okay, I'm going to start off with a song called Dying to Be Reborn. And it's about, it's a song that sort of lyrically came to me when I was on a Vipassana retreat. And the lyrics were sort of rattling around in my brain. And when it was all over, when the retreat was all over, I jotted it down. And then made some modifications and kind of came up with this song. And it's really about the sort of cyclical nature of life and the rites of passage that we go through on that cycle of life. So here we go. Out here on the endeavor, contending with time. Out here forging a name in the flames of the strife. Just like everyone else, but like no one at all. Ever faced with a challenge that constantly calls. The sands of our seconds sift by through the hourglass, from dreams of the future to wake of the past. Our essence remains eternal, shape-shifting in form, through the eye of the needle, shedding the skin I've worn. Dying to be reborn. So here I am now on the verge of the new, standing before the threshold that I must pass through. Uncertain of what it is I'm gonna find, but I'm taking my chances on a new paradigm. The sands of our seconds sift by through the hourglass, awake to the future from the dream of the past. Our essence remains eternal, shape-shifting in form, through the eye of the needle, shedding the skin I've worn. Dying to be reborn. Through the eye of the needle, through the eye of the needle, through the prescient dream of the golden green beetle. Man, it was just what I needed, shedding the skin I've worn. Dying to be reborn. Oh, oh, oh. dying to be reborn. Oh, oh, oh.
Beautiful.
Thanks, Josh.
So good. I love that song.
Thank you, sir.
Captured quite a bit in that.
I'll lead into another one called Catharsis. This is a song I wrote in just at the beginning of the pandemic, after sort of mulling over the lyrics and the sort of feeling like I'd arrived at a chord progression, but it was kind of lacking inspiration. And then I saw the movie The Work, and it just all came right through after seeing that, because it was so powerful. Such a great documentary, and so moving. And there's a chant that they do in that movie. It's in the trailer, and the kind of rhythm and the drive of the chant was something that I feel kind of like a beating heart, like it made its way into this song in its own kind of way. So, just catharsis. Was a man of two faces, on the outside a mask, on the inside a monster, with a mind from the past. At least that's how I saw him. If I gave him a glance, but how could I control him if I gave him a chance? Sense of coming catharsis, silent creature of night, treated like he was worthless, broke him down, broke him down. To own your own darkness, you must stretch the depths. So I went on a dark quest through my own silhouette, heart of stark isolation, heart of self-imposed chains, of my own damn creation. Were we one and the same? Sense of coming catharsis, take his treasure to light and break on out of this darkness. Break on out, break on out. Deep down in the dungeon is a man in the murk, wearing my own expression. I can no longer shirk, I can no longer shackle what I see in myself. What was once such a grapple, now the blending of realms, sense of coming catharsis, smash the ceiling of night. I'm emerging victorious, gonna break on out to the light. Yeah. Break on out to the light.
Beautiful. Yeah, that one's a good one. The story behind that one is so good. We did an interview with Jon on a video, and I think that one's called Shadow Unleashed, and you tell a little bit about the story there. There's a lot of synchronicities that were showing up at that time, and it actually seems to be that way quite a bit when we're present, when we're engaged, when we're connected. And so it's almost like the song wrote itself in some ways.
Yeah. That's often how it can feel. The process can feel like that. Interestingly, yeah, with that one, there was just the symbolism of the turkey vulture, which appeared unbeknownst to me, the sort of symbolic meaning behind that bird. Like I was already well into the process of doing the song. I'd already come up with the title, Catharsis, and it was just one of these days where I was like, I had kind of an open schedule, and as much as I can often feel guilty about what feels like doing nothing, like in this case, following intuition, I just I put that aside, and I went out and I kind of let intuition guide me until the point I was out in this farmer's field, and I saw these turkey vultures circling overhead, and I just kind of went on a journey following them while I was actually listening to the song, because that's often how I'll work through the lyrics or the music, and to hear it from a listener's point of view, and to try to fill in what feels like is missing that I can't sort of just do when I'm playing and listening to myself in real time. So I was listening to the song and watching these birds and working through the process of the song. And there's other things that tied into this too. I talked about it in the interview, but then I discovered after the fact that the turkey vulture, the Latin name for it is Cathartes aura, and that the word catharsis comes from that bird, meaning to purify, because they're like scavengers, and they don't kill animals, they just clean up the environment essentially. So they're the golden purifier. So it was, when I discovered that, it was like, oh, that's kind of trippy,
Yeah,
interesting
love that
moment. Okay, I'll do one more.
Perfect.
So this one I'm working on. I've got some studio time booked for it, and I'm gonna get it recorded sometime this month, and then hopefully have it out in March or April. This is called My Anchor of Gold, and it's sort of it's a hero's journey motif set to a nautical kind of theme. So here we go. Anchor, yet here I am drifting
drifting along. It seems that I'm stuck in this place, yet somehow I still aimlessly roam. Drifting, yet sadly I've never left home. My anchor devoured by a monster, submerged in the depths of my soul. Anchor, and here I am, trapped somehow. I'm gone, but I'm back somehow. No, I'm not on solid ground, no. Drifting, no captain to stand in my helm. A nautical nomad who's stuck in some forever fantasy realm. I saw my reflection there when the sea calmed. It shook me awake, it shook me away. The bottle was broken, the message encased. Stared me straight in the face, said it's time to leave this place, to leave this place. Oh, oh, oh. Anchored in the shallows and barely afloat, till I found that the man and the monster were deeper down in the same boat. Drifting till I picked up and plotted my course, setting sail in the name of a dream that might find me on faraway shores. I saw my reflection there when the sea calmed. It shook me awake, it shook me awake. The bottle was broken, the message encased. Stared me straight in the face and said it's time to leave this place, to leave this place. Oh. Fathoms below, to the monster unknown. From my anchor of gold, anchor of gold, anchor of gold, anchor of gold. The light I behold, to the light I behold, and my anchor of gold.
Thanks, Jon.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you,
Yeah.
everybody.
Jon's going to spend the rest of the satsang with us as we move into Q&A. Thank you all for participating today and being kind enough to welcome Jon as well. It works out pretty well considering there's a little bit of a virus infiltrating the sinuses over here at the moment. So it just, things tend to work out perfectly. So really appreciate you, Jon. And, one thing I wanted to mention too is he and I, we've been working together for a while now. And, one of the things that seems to fit for him is attending retreats and being able to play music. And there really does seem to be a pretty decent overlap for him. So Angelo is also kind of interested in that, and those conversations continue. So thanks for being here, man.
Thank you.
All right, we'll just get into the basics. Please keep yourself on mute unless you're asking a question. If you go down to the bottom of your screen, you'll see where it says reactions. There you can raise a hand. When you raise a hand, I'll call on you in the order that it shows up over here. If you don't feel like you want to be on camera, there's a few options. You can ask a question with your camera off, or you can go to the chat and you can just type in your question and we will keep you entirely anonymous. That also works just fine. But really, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. And who has a question? Who would like to engage? All right, looks like we have someone. We have, let's go to Deborah.
Hi, Josh.
Hi.
That was beautiful music. Thank you, Jon. I have a question that I've been mulling over. I think you spoke at POK, so the 45-day finders course, and I had lots of like glimpses, whatever you call that. So I can be in bliss for like months where nothing rattles me. I'm just like, I might notice a tiny little trigger and I'll go, wow. I just feel a little something and I go, that's so nothing. Like I'm free. I'm so good. And then it doesn't work. Then I'm kind of like, fuck, I don't like that person. I'm pissed right now. And then I don't like that I'm not liking it, right? I love my peaceful love for everyone. Everything's cool. So I'm trying to figure out, I know just embrace that, right? But I'm sort of stuck between, no, I don't know. I don't want to make more out of it than what it is. Yeah, I'm not sure how to deal with the judgment thoughts or when I don't like something, except maybe to say, okay, wow, I'm not liking it right now. And then I don't quite know how to follow through with it. It eventually goes away. Am I just not skilled enough at it to go, wow, that was totally nothing? That's my question.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem to have anything to do with skill, but it does have to do with regularity of engagement, it seems. So there's something strange that starts to show up. The more often we allow ourselves to engage with what's present, and the best compass for that seems to be sensation, the more we are essentially using a pattern of habit against a system that's creating habit. In other words, we're feeling all the time anyway. So when we're developing a pattern of habit of something that we're already doing, we could just call that a reconciliation. And in that process, what happens is it starts to interrupt other patterns. So there's a bunch of things that can happen along the way. When you have those months of bliss, that's beyond just a glimpse, right? But there is something that wants to linger in certain circumstances. And this is where you would hear that as long as I remain alive, I must remain vigilant. That's something that Nissargadatta said. And it makes perfect sense because we have to be so engaged that if there's anything that's left, any residue of identity that might be lingering, we see it immediately. And that can show up that way. But I think what can also kind of start to take place is there's this thought belief that awakening is all just one thing. It's all just like peace, or it's all just harmony. It's really all it is just engagement. And it really comes down to being so immediate with your experience that you neutralize the reference. And so what that really looks like is, to make it really simple, and maybe some of you have already heard this, but if you have an observer that feels fixed, these experiences are moving and coming and going all the time, and there's always a point of reference. But if something is coming up immediately and we step all the way in and we become that experience, there is no more reference to anything else. And if there's no more reference to anything else, we don't have reactive behavior, because all that really is like a delay to basically say anything other than this. We're attempting to move away from this. Become whatever it is that arises. If resistance shows up, the only way we can know it to be resistance is if we're referring to what was there before that's no longer present. So we become the resistance. And what you find is reaction is impossible to become whatever that experience is. So it's subtle fixations at this point. In other words, it's supposed to be this way, no other way. And then if something comes up that seems to come in conflict with that, that's where the conflict is. Instead of becoming the experience itself, you're saying, I don't like this experience. This is where the Buddhists have a lot of wisdom, very, very clever pointing. When they say life is suffering, they're not really saying that life is suffering as opposed to something that isn't suffering. What they're saying is suffering is the reference point of all experience. That's the place we always say no, no, no. So if we become suffering, there is no suffering. They're not saying you're doomed to suffer as opposed to something else. They're saying go there all the way. If you have an experience of suffering, become that experience. And this is probably why we see that people who are in the throes of some really intense and deep suffering tend to wake up, because it becomes unignorable. They can't move away from it anymore, and they become the very experience that they had been fighting. And in that experience, there's a wide breadth of awakening. So it's just keep swimming. You know, these things will arise. Life lives. Hailstorms will hit. We'll have weather events, fires, whatever it may be, but that doesn't actually mean anything unless it's referencing a previous moment. And on a very, very fundamental level, all it is there, for most human beings, there's a fundamental belief in cause and effect. And it makes sense because that's what the entire frame of the mind is. But if we get present enough, we start to see that it doesn't seem to be a fundamental aspect of reality. It seems to be an overlay. And a fundamental overlay nonetheless. It's like one of the first, like this creates this and this creates this. But that also gives us rise to our perception of time, that past causes present, causes future. And so when you hear about no agency and you hear about no time and no distance, what that really is being so utterly present that the cause and effect overlay is no longer filtering the entire experience. And so time collapses. Agency collapses. Because when we are so present, we start to see the secondary nature of thought. And I can come from this is just a story, but this might help. There was a point where I remember feeling some really intense sensations. And in that experience, there was a narration that would come like a sliver of time after the sensation to talk about the sensation. And it became really apparent that I did not need to entertain that because you're late, man. You're late to the party. I'm already in it. That was a really unique experience, because then I started to see that none of these thoughts needed to be taken seriously, needed to be engaged with, or needed to be regarded at all. And that just became the most interesting space to be, is just resting in sensation. And that's where all these things seem to become really, really apparent, that cause and effect is an overlay. It's a narration after the fact, just like agency. Oh, I did that. I did that. I did that. But it's all referencing some past event. And if we're in the midst of the moment, we see things are occurring, and then there's like this overlay that's attempting to say, I did that. It's like this need for ownership of experience. And it really stems from knowledge and certainty, because it's saying, you know it, don't experience it again. You know it, here, put it in your collection, put it on the shelf, let it gather some dust. So when it comes to frustration and all these things, the only way you could possibly know it to be frustration if it's referring to something else that doesn't exist in that moment. That's how immediate we eventually want to become. And what you find is there's not a lot of effort there. It's pretty much happening on its own. And it can be so rapid, the experience, they shift like this emptiness to form to emptiness, that the mind can't catch up, because it is a sliver behind, constantly a sliver behind. And I think, we often use the word reflection or house or hall of mirrors, but that doesn't really give us a visceral sense of how it actually functions. It's closer to an echo, where you hear the sound and then you hear the echo. You get a visceral sense of that delay. Thoughts are very much like an echo. Something is occurring, and then there's an echo that's speaking to it, that's creating a cause and effect narrative. That right there is a major insight, just to see that in process. And then we go, well, we don't have to fight it. We don't have to alter it. We don't have to even engage with it. so it can be there. We allow it to be there, but it doesn't run the show anymore because it's late to the party.
Yeah, that's good. I can see it. It's probably the whisper of my mind still going, maybe you should look at that. Don't you want to know why you're doing that or where that's come from or what's triggering it? And I think that gets
Ah,
my attention a little bit more like I
yes.
need to fix this because that's old shit, right? So
This is perfect. So right there, you're coming in contact with a subtle belief that there's something that needs to be fixed, right? Or something that needs to be at least looked at. That can show up in the belief that I need to heal, that my past has caused who I am or what my experience is now. But really, what it's referring to is a cause and effect relationship. Just consider this. Nobody should take my word for it. Firsthand experience is king here. Consider that cause and effect isn't a fundamental aspect of this reality and explore from there. Just consider it. Be curious about that. And I think what you might find is there is no past event that could possibly have any effect now because there is no past. We can't grab it. We can't touch it. It's all happening in thought, which is close to present. It's very close to present, these thoughts. There's nothing to fix. Even if you're in the midst of, if you've experienced a lot of trauma in your life, that's still just a cause and effect storyline that's attempting to define your experience now. And that's like wearing those Vision Pro goggles with an overlay. You're seeing through, they're translucent, so you can see through them, but there's an overlay of everything that is being looked at if there's that kind of narrative in place. So here, this might help you a lot. This has come up recently as an intuitive insight. When you have thoughts that are doubt, when you have thoughts that seem to contain a lot of detail, just zoom out a little bit from the detail and ask yourself, what do these thoughts feel like? What's the feeling of this? What's the theme of this? And you will probably immediately recognize something here. Now you're going to something primary because it's very, very, very clear. Everything stems from sensation, everything, all experience. Every thought is attempting to refer to sensation. And really, it's because it thinks it's going to protect us from something that it thinks is dangerous. And it makes sense. This whole experience of disassociated into the conceptual space, if we're in the midst of something absolutely dangerous, something's going to eat us, it makes sense to disassociate from the intensity of that experience, move into the mind so that we get away. And then once the danger is past, we come back home. But I think what happened is when we're kids, whatever that was, whatever that relatively traumatic experience or series of them were, we got really good at disassociating. And then the machine that's built for short-term survival began to like overlay everything. And then what started to happen is it started to regard every possible sensation as dangerous. And so, and this is the best gauge, you're getting close to something if the details just won't stop. They just keep popping because detail is excellent at keeping us engaged with something. As human beings, we love cause and effect storylines. And that gets built here in this construct of thought, and it keeps us away from something that we feel because it doesn't know that this won't kill us. So we have to experience the most intense sensations possible, just as they are, so that we can prove to it that there's nothing to protect. And in that process, remarkably, that's acceptance. That's also letting go just by feeling because it lets itself go. These are the antithesis of doing. This is why we point to stillness because you can't let go. You can't do that action, nor can you accept. That's not an action. It's an automatic experience. It's innocent. It's uncaused. Just like sensation. Whatever we feel, we feel. We actually can't alter them. And this has come up recently too. Here in Colorado, we have a saying, you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. And so fundamentally, it's still a pig. And so whatever that sensation is, it is what it is. Can't actually be changed. But this kicks in and attempts to create a story, connections, all sorts of stuff, just to kind of remove us from that experience. Thinks it's doing us a favor. But then sometimes we engage with that, and now we got a wig on the pig, and now it's in a dress, and now it's got high heels, and now it's dancing, and now there's a whole stage of pigs. But fundamentally, it is what it is, and it cannot be modified. This is the remarkable kind of paradoxical experience to be with what is effortless and what is uncaused, which doesn't seem to have any cause, is innocence. So just to feel and feel all the way, we come in contact with our truest nature, which is innocence. We are uncaused. We cannot be evaluated. We cannot be measured. It doesn't actually work that way. But this, because of the cause and effect nature in the storyline, it's all about comparison, reference. Reference to what? It's an automatic assumption that there's something to reference. And that plays itself out in so many ways. And it dominates our lives. So what we do is we reconcile with what we feel. And I don't know why it's so simple, but it is. We have an integration where we see the tool for the tool. It's a great assistant. It's a terrible boss.
Wow, you just gave me the most brilliant insight too, that I was thinking, well, what about if I'm angry? It's like, so if I'm angry and I want to express it, it's the resistance to don't do that because it's making me do something, where the anger is all mine. It has nothing to do with the person. Even
Always.
just acknowledging, oh, there's anger here. It's not about, I was thinking, well, what do I do with it? It's like nothing. I mean, it's just
That's right. That's another one, is what do I do with this, is one of the most common questions I get. What do I do with this? That's an assumption that there's something to do with something. There's nothing to do. Even feeling, it's automatic. You don't even have to do that. It's happening already. And here's what you'll start to realize on the journey, it's always occurring. But there's this strange perceptual attention experience that our perceptual attention can get locked into a conceptual space. So the reason the pointing is every thought, every notion of a thought is a reminder to go right back here, is because as we oscillate, as it pulls us and we seem to pull ourselves back, we start to have the realization that we are simultaneously here and simultaneously noticing thoughts. And that's where it gets interesting. Because if we're noticing both, we definitely can't be thought. And then we start to go, wait, is this even who am I now? All of a sudden the attention becomes wide. And this is why it's the best pointer to say, maybe we are just the attention of consciousness itself. But the only way to really start to know that is to explore the places where there's a hell no, because we won't touch it. And there's an assumption that we know it, but I promise you, you do not. You do not. If it's painful and it seems one-sided, you don't know it. You know what it is to pull away from it. And that experience itself is suffering. To live in a delay, to live in an imposed separation, that's suffering. And it's all perceptual.
So beautiful. Thank you, Josh. I appreciate you taking all that when you don't feel well. It means a lot. Thank you.
Just comes out.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Nice to see you. All right, Paul. What's going on, Paul?
Okay, Josh. Thanks, Josh. Thanks for. I love the way you just try things like having John. John was a wonderful way into Sangha. So really, it's wonderful to come here, as an individual and suddenly be in this wonderful and so recognizable world of sound and just the story of John's music. So catharsis really hit home in terms of just thinking darkness is something I can't bring to Sangha. And you can hear in darkness, that we all have it. So it's so good to have that in the lyrics. And then in the first song we had like everyone, but no one at all. And it's so reassuring to know, there's nothing exceptional here. And that can really hit home through music and through art. So that sort of brought to mind an event, because theater is important here. We had a show last night, and it's been going well. We've had this is our third show. The season had been going really well, and just prior to hitting the stage, the lead actor happened to have an accident, and unfortunately, she was injured to a point where she couldn't go onto the stage. And I guess where this is going is there's an idea here that the leader has a reputation, the leader has an audience, the leader has work to give and a reputation. But when this actress went down with an injury, is what you were saying before about this default to, oh shit, this is not the script. This, we have a show, we have an audience. But I think what was good was this just going into the moment and going to the actor and putting a hand on her shoulder. And so the default here is just intense impatience, intense frustration. So just closing the eyes, and what was known to support, the triggers here was just breathing. So just together, in the dark space of that backstage, hand on shoulder and just sharing the breathing. And then, of course, those in the group who are so compassionate and caring and don't have all this, artistic ego of myself, they just joined in. And so as a group, we were supporting, the show became supporting this colleague of ours, with this moment of anxiety. So it was kind of interesting. I had a show, I had all these grand ideas of how the show would go. And suddenly it became a simple act of compassion, hand on shoulder, and as a group, just helping this colleague through this episode of anxiety. And of course, with that, as people became present and the ego got out of the way, suddenly these solutions were coming to mind and people were putting their hand up to cover parts. And it was better than the show, the way that people can actually be allowed, and just the joy of allowing life to flow. So that I just wanted to share that and I think some of Jon's music brought to mind, that we're all the same, but we're all different, but there's nothing to hide.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good pointer altogether too, is you can even ask the inquiry, what wants to hide? It really does come down to that. It's this has been said probably before, but it seems like shame is just the experience of something that wants to hide our innocence, but ultimately they're the same. Shame is innocence. And it probably came down to something conditioned or an experience where our innocence seemed to yield a result externally that we immediately said, oh, this caused pain, and so I have to hide this. It's interesting.
It is. We're starting a new term here in Sydney, and I'm teaching. These kids have come off 7 weeks of holidays, summer holidays here, and just going in front of, this is year 9, these are 14-year-olds, and just going into the room with that no hiding, and just going into the room with this complete equality. It's kind of radical because they realize there's nothing exceptional about the teacher. There's nothing expected from these kids that the teacher doesn't uphold. So it's what's beautiful, I think, and this goes with the actors, it goes with the students, is I don't have to put energy, into. There's been this idea, that I've got to keep it together. But what I'm realizing, if I don't hide, people they actually respect that more. If I don't hide, people actually, they're willing to put the work in. So go figure, hey?
This is the pointing. It's beautiful. Our truest nature is exactly the same. All of us. This is the no separation in experience. So when you get closer to that, the authenticity that becomes revealed, it's contagious. It's drawing. Everyone wants to be a part of that experience. We see it in performance. We see it everywhere. Anytime we see something is just unapologetically authentic, and it's tricky because the identity will say, I know what's authentic. That's not where it is. It's where you don't know. That's where you find it. But as that's transpiring, arising, being revealed, there is no more boundary. There's no more other there. It's all that. This, just like this. And those types of environments are great places to explore that, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No hiding with your 9. Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Paul.
Cheers.
All right, a second. Let me do this 1 second. We'll move to Tamara. See if I can pin you real quick.
Hey there.
Hey.
Is that volume okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Cool. Um, yeah, I'm just gonna ask like maybe like a couple of questions. You can answer whatever you feel like you want to answer. But um, so basically, it's just surrender and self-inquiry are sort of the 24/7 focus right now. And so the question about surrender, I think self-inquiry was um like this seems to be two different, looks like, yeah. Oh, okay. It's sort of, there seems to be two movements when inquiry is happening. One is sort of, it's like a perceptual thing where I sort of, I'm looking for where I'm looking from. I'm looking for the source of attention. And then there's another movement which is more about kind of like sometimes it gets to become about like, no, but like this tamer, like this person that I know. And so it begins to become more like I don't know, like I don't know if you're feeling familiar with the movie like Memento or something, but it's like there's almost like there's a more like heart centric or like the feeling of identity suddenly becomes like, I guess like the word memory is like what I'm looking for there. It's like it suddenly becomes about memory. It's like what's happening right now is that a lot of these memories are like coming up, and then that seems to be what's happening a lot with the self-inquiry movement right now, is that it's sort of bringing up a lot of memories. And it's like, what about this memory and that memory? And like memories out of nowhere, like really deep and random memories that usually wouldn't be coming up in my thought space. And then so sometimes sort of this, so yeah, just that seems to be the two directions of self-inquiry. One is like the perceptual thing of like putting attention at the root of attention. And the other one is like, wait, like, are we actually questioning whether I'm real or not? Like, it's almost like the tamer comes in and he's like, I'm real, like I'm here. Why are you like questioning my existence? So there's almost like there's it's so it's like, yeah, there's that more pure consciousness finding the source of attention, and then there's a different thing that comes along where it's kind of like, it's almost like, wait, am I not real then or something? So there's always like this weird sense, and then like the main theme of that seems to be basically like memory. Like it kind of it's like I'm trying to figure out like, so all these memories just like somehow didn't really happen or something. And maybe that's enough. I think that's enough for a question right now. But I hope that made some sense.
Yeah, inquiry. I always encourage people to have a very vigilant relationship with inquiry, because sometimes inquiry can start to take on interpretation and assumption, which we don't even see. So here's the first thing that I'll bring is when memory tends to erupt, there's a sign that you're getting close to something, and what it wants to do is start to create detail, because detail becomes extremely intriguing for us intellectually, and we tend to like really want to stick to detail and get into the detail and look for the why and look for the connections. So just know that as those memories come up, if you can give yourself the benefit of the doubt, and you can even ask another inquiry there, what is this compensating for? Or is this compensating for something? Is this forcing a reference with something? And as soon as that question arises, if it's pointing back to something else, whatever it's pointing to is primary. So go there. Go to what's primary. Memories tend to have a feel, a theme, just like dreams. There's like something that's felt in that experience. That is where it's all pointing to. That's the moon. These are the fingers. So there's that part. There's also an experience a lot of people have with the I am experience. We could even say that could be broken up in a way. The I being the identity and the am being the great experience of consciousness. With the I am, it's important to recognize that there's a space between the I and the am. And that space is the body itself, sensation itself. Or you could look at Christianity. They speak of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. It's the same kind of pointing. It's moving from this through the transitionary space to the great I am. And I think a lot of people I work with are able to move from the head to this deep samadhi, to this big, open, wide vastness. But the thing that always seems to come up for them is, why do I keep coming back into identity if I'm able to go there? And it's because something is still being rejected. Something is still not being engaged with. That's all. So the body, and those memories, I promise you, especially memory, especially if it feels hard, if it feels like tamer, then it is pointing to the body. That's it. Get to know whatever it seems to be pointing to really well. And you might find that maybe it's not necessarily an uncomfortable sensation. Don't look for what's uncomfortable. Notice it immediately. You'll notice it right away once you just, oh, there it is. You can ask, what do these memories feel like? What's the sense of these memories? What's the theme of these memories? And you'll see that it's felt. And that's it.
Right. Yeah, it just a very short question about, so I think, yeah, this emphasis about just getting into the body, feeling sensation. Yeah. So like when I'm doing like surrender meditation or natural meditation, isn't that kind of subtle energetic intention to like fully enter the body and feel the body, isn't that still a kind of a doing? Or would you say that's okay, like you just have that bit of doing in the surrender meditation?
It can feel like a doing at first, but the realization that seems to arise over time is that we are always feeling. There's an intention here anyway, all the time. We can't. Here's what the mind is always telling us: you can only do one thing. It's either this or this. It's this force in contradiction. But in reality, we're simultaneously experiencing these things, but our perception, for some reason, doesn't recognize that. So it will feel a little bit like a doing because, in a way, it's almost like you're pulling away from this other space. But over time, because it will feel like an oscillation, that oscillation starts to reveal that it's both. So there's a little bit of a paradox there. But yeah, it does feel a little bit like a doership, but it's a type of doership that is already happening. We just don't really have a perceptual attention to it.
Right. So you just still do that bit of doership to make sure that you're with the body rather than with thought.
Right. Yeah. And then that's also where you start to get some more insight and thought. You know, there can be an adversarial relationship for a while. Seems to be part of every path. The ego, the identity, the thought. There's like this adversary there. But that's only because we have a sense that we have to reject something for something else. It's still a reference point. What we eventually see is that these thoughts are actually allies because, as a theme, they're revealing exactly what's present every time. So the theme of every thought is present, but the detail seems to be at a delay, at an echo. But the overall like perimeter of every thought is absolutely the same as sensation. So it's a strange experience. And I don't know if we could ever really get beyond saying that, you know, it seems like the detail of thought is an echo while the sense of a thought is present. But maybe somebody will have another more elegant way to put that. I don't know how to really put that to words, what that experience is like. But I think when you get a real sense of how secondary thought is, it just doesn't become as interesting anymore.
Yeah.
And you're not really sacrificing thought, but it might seem that way at first. It kind of has to be that way. It's almost like we go to the other extreme of experience, and then somehow we just end up right in this fine line, right in this non-dual experience. And we don't even have to call it non-dual. It's just essentially a paradoxical experience.
Mm.
And we feel perfectly aligned in that space, even though this can't glean it.
Yeah. Just one last question. Just you're pointing a lot up here, you know, to the right side when you're referring to thought. This could just be random, but it's actually it's my experience. It's like it actually feels like there's something right here, like this right side of the body. There's like a big thing here. There's an organism or something, like a big energetic thing here. And I also feel like my head is like in a vice grip by whatever this thing is.
Yeah.
And it does constantly feel that way. And that's the other thing I've noticed. The guy or the organism that is feeding me these memories 24/7 is constantly here. Like it's just I actually I sense it as an energetic kind of entity that is kind of like look at this like this basically, and I'm just like, dude, just get off my head. But so I just wonder what you, or if you had anything to say about that weird feeling of, because in the past I used to think like, because of psychedelics that I did like many years ago, I got into a weird headspace where I was like, oh dude, you picked up like an entity, there's like an entity stuck on your head. And then later on I think I've just realized that that entity is you, basically. It's that's the ego, or that's the thought self, or whatever you want to say. But
Yeah.
yeah.
It just seems really kind of organic here to realize that thoughts seem to be an energetic space that is like picked up right in this area for some reason, but they're not in anywhere. It's almost like this is an antenna receiving an energetic signature of something that seems to be just moving.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but a lot of people I work with too, when they have that first experience of thought, it tends to show up to the right of them.
Yeah, I think just a random thing. I think the reason for that, this is just a thing that I have a lot of history with, but I think the reason for that is basically it's the left brain. So the right half of your perceptual field is like mediated by the left hemisphere of the brain.
Probably.
So, and the left brain is basically like, when I was younger, I made a demon out of the left brain. I was like, everything, all the problems of the world are the left brain. Because like that's the ego, that's the self system, that's like the rational thought that makes everything into like gray and black, and you know the machine, like the machine person. But yeah, but so I guess this isn't basically, I guess my issue is this is not a problem, I guess, because my main experience of meditation a lot is basically I feel like my head's in an energetic vice, and I'm just there like, am I ever going to get out of this? Like I'm just stuck in this. My head is like, it's like even self-inquiry becomes a bit redundant, because it's like, what, there's nothing to inquire about, my head's just in a vice, dude. Like this is what, you know what I mean?
And I want to be a little bit cautious about this, because I'm not attempting to say reject anything, but what we've found is, you know, I've had about 600 sessions up to this point, and people that feel a lot of sensation in their head, it tends to be connected to something deeper in the emotional center of the body, and it almost acts as a distraction because it's so visceral. Like people will feel pain, people feel pressure, something on top, or a squeezing. Just gently inquire to see if there's anything else, like beaming, buzzing, singing, and that might be an introduction into something a little bit more fundamental.
Right.
But I'm not asking you to reject these sensations either, though. So that's the fine line here.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I guess it goes without saying, but like this is not a problem, right? Like I seem to have this feeling that it's just like somehow, so this just like stuck, and I just like, I feel like I'm just that's like most of my experience, just this feeling of I'm just somehow like caught in some energetic basically there's a strong energetic contraction in the head, and I'm just like stuck there forever. It's like, okay, well,
look at that reference point, the belief that there's such thing as relief. If this was the only experience, then what could it possibly be referring to? This
right.
this part is challenging, but this is where I remind you all that we die into every moment. We die because we lose our reference by dying into the experience. And if this experience is screaming, you die into that experience. And if you become that experience, there's nothing else. So how can you know if you like it or not? How could you know if you wanted relief? How could you know there's a you if that's all there is?
Yeah. Cool. Thanks very much, Josh.
Hey, man. Nice to see you. All right. Let's see who we have. Holly.
Hi. So I'm feeling really contracted and in a lot of physical pain. And this is something that keeps coming back for me again and again, is chronic pain. And I feel like I've been on this sensation thing for so many years now, like come back to sensation, come back to sensation. But can you hear me okay?
Yes.
But it's like, I feel like it's so frustrating because it's this constant oscillation. So now it's like the chronic pain is getting really bad. Like it's becoming quite debilitating, which seems to always come back to this. I'll get to this point where the chronic pain is it's shutting my life down. It feels like I'm being like, my whole body, not just my head, everything is in a vice. I'm just like shaking inside now, just talking. And it's just, yeah, I feel it's almost like, I feel like there's got to be another trick. There's got to be another way to bring my attention back to the body and to be able to stay in the body without it constantly flipping back up to my thoughts. Yeah, it's just, it's not even that I get hooked in the thoughts for too long, but it's this constant flipping back and forth, like, and then when I'm brought into this state where I'm so contracted and in so much pain, it's really all I have. It's all I can do because there's not much else I can do. So all I can do is that. And it's just frustrating and exhausting.
Yeah. You're looking for relief from frustration and exhaustion, right?
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say there's a belief that I should have relief. There's a belief that I shouldn't be in pain.
Perfect. That you already know where that's pointing.
Mm-hmm.
But also be with the frustration as that arises without it referring to anything else. So if it's frustration, that's something new. I mean, really the best way to describe an insight in a fundamental way is that which is new. And really, this is perpetually new. It's new, it's new, it's new. You're dragging a lot of history into saying, well, this has been an ongoing thing. That story is dominating the narrative for you.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as you see that narrative, how does that feel? How does this narrative feel? What's the feeling of this? And then you'll be right back to with what is primary. But it's going to feel like an oscillation for a while. And now you're in the experience of this sucks. It has to be this way if that's what's showing up.
Right. Because there's like a story that's saying like, you've been here before, you've done this, it doesn't work. Nothing works. This isn't going to work.
So that's coming from a space of certainty, as if you could know what's new here now, or what's new in any given moment. That's impossible. Certainty is it's an assumption, but it gives us a sense of don't need to entertain this. Boom. And that right there immediately makes you want to seek something else. That's a pattern for you too. I don't even have to know your history to know that oh, I'm going to find another method. Okay. But eventually you will exhaust all possibilities. And I will support you in that too, because here's the thing. Sometimes we have to play ring around the rosy for a while.
I feel I've exhausted everything.
There is a point where we are just trapped. We realize there's nowhere to run or hide.
That's how I feel. I just feel it's just, but it feels like it's been like this for so long. It's just like, I'm just every which way I turn, I'm hitting a wall. It's so.
Just know that the details themselves are all designed to keep you away from something. So if it feels this one-sided, I can promise you this, something is still withholding full immersion in that experience. It can never be one experience. Whatever we experience as pain, it's not that. It might have a tinge of that, but there's a lot more there. And that's how you know, like the whole shadow on the wall metaphor is perfect. Because if we see a shadow on the wall, we get a one-dimensional experience of that which is being lit up. And if we take that as whole truth, then it's just going to feel, or the experience is all going to be one-sided. But that's pointing to that which is being illuminated. And if you go there, you'll see there's a lot more to this than pain.
I know and intuit, and I sense that the truth of that. I sense that's true. Yeah. I mean, so it's just a matter of just keep on plugging away. Just keep
regularity of engagement, noticing when there's compensation that arises that you're justifying. I can do this, I'll justify, and you keep doing that. That one space right there is maintaining this experience. Anything that arises that seems like I got to do something about this, just ask, is this compensating for anything, or is this an effortless movement? Is this moving me? And if you notice it's compensating for something, go to the what's primary, because that's all. You don't know it yet. You know what it looks like maybe from a distance, but that doesn't mean anything.
So, I mean, anything like something as simple as like going and making coffee, like it could be anything. Like that's
Every single, this is about diligence and perpetual engagement. We don't get to take a break. We never have been able to take a break. This is why awakening is so elusive for people, because they think there's an event and then they get to take a break. They get to move back into complacency or disassociation. No, it's perpetual. You step into it, you never leave. But what you start to find is it's effortless. It's not managed. And so why would I ever leave anyway? Why would I ever attempt to throw in this perceptual buffer anyway? This is endless. And even physical death doesn't remove you from this. So be willing to die into your sensations. Be willing to let them kill you. That eventually comes to that for us. This is not a negotiation. It's not feel it a little bit and then things will be better. No, it's not like that, unfortunately. It's feel everything all the way. That's it. You don't have a choice. You can gussy up that pig. You make it look really nice, but it's always going to be a pig.
it's like the intention to do that and to stay with the sensation is there. It's there. It's just that it's like I just flip out of it so quickly.
Yeah. And I think probably there's something that's really good at holding on, just like a stubbornness, an energy of stubbornness there. That's why you have to just remain until that breaks. It will break, but you have to remain. You don't no choice, basically. You don't actually have a choice.
Yeah, I mean, like even taking care of my health, even doing things to take care of my health are also a distraction from that. It's like it just seems like everything at this point is
It's
a distraction.
Notice the compensation for control.
Mm-hmm.
If I manipulate and I alter my environment, the body, all these things, and everything will be okay. Let it go. What comes naturally? This is where you start entering into that which is spontaneous and unpredictable, and that's also probably going to be uncomfortable. Well, if I don't do this with my body, then there's consequences.
Yeah.
But what are you going to be doing in the meantime? Trust what's natural. And the only way to do that is really just to continue staying engaged. There might be a lot of tears. There might be moments where you don't feel like you can move. It can be this way sometimes. And then it just seems to kind of give in a little bit. And then we keep living. And then here it comes. And then it does this. But we stay engaged all the time. And before we realize it, it's like some people will take on a diet and they'll be just so engaged with life that they don't really realize what's going on. And they'll jump on the scale one day and they'll be like, oh my God, I just lost 20 pounds. And they don't realize that was happening. It can be this way too, but it's only because we remain engaged. We're not attempting to measure ourselves all the time. But most importantly, notice all those mechanisms in real time as much as possible. My sense is that there's still a mechanism of controlling the feeling experience, which means that you're still held at a distance. This is become the pain. Become it. Because that is the space of reference, and it will always be that way. If there's always a reference space, then there will always be suffering. The identity says, I know I'm real. I know I exist because I feel pain. And so what does it do? It imposes pain. Shame keeps pushing shame, imposing. Well, let it impose pain. If you are pain, then what's the difference? Doesn't matter. No reference, nothing outside, just that. I know it doesn't sound fun, but this is the way.
Okay. Thanks, Josh.
You got this. Don't look for alternatives, or you can. It's up to you.
So even looking, because at this point, like in terms of inquiry into the identity, like that's a distraction as well, it seems like, because I've done that for.
Yeah, you're already connected to something profound.
Yeah.
The rest, keep you busy. Detail of thought. Eventually, inquiry, we realize, is just more thought.
Yeah, exactly.
Inquiry is really useful to engage with the energetics of curiosity. And eventually, there's no more thought that's associated. Inquiry just becomes curiosity. Be curious. Are you sure you know what this is? Are you sure it hurts? Are you sure you don't like it? That's all. Are you sure there's anything even there?
Yeah, I mean, it's all just thought and belief that's just keeping this thing in place. Like, it's just even the idea, like, oh, am I identified with this? Am I identified with a struggle, which there is a possibility of that, but even that thought, like any
cut
thought.
that question out. That's useless. Just go to what you seems to be real and approach it in a way of, is this absolutely real? Is this absolutely the way it seems? Is this absolutely, let me find the bottom of this. Let me find the boundaries. Let me find a clear essence of solidity to this experience. Let me verify it over and over and over. Prove it. I'm going to prove that this is actually a real thing. It's that energy.
Yeah.
The identification aspect, you could just guarantee that there's identity there. You don't even need to ask the question. It's a given. If it seems consistent, there's a belief and identity present. That's all. And this is where you start to notice the subtleties of how it wants to co-opt and continue like pulling strings. That's okay. I mean, as soon as you notice it, you're less likely to fall for it. It's just baiting you.
Yeah, it's like physically strangling. Like it's so crazy.
And really notice contraction means nothing. It doesn't mean anything. An orgasm is a contraction. There's a lot of wonderful contractions, so it doesn't mean anything. So if it feels like a contraction, whatever. There definitely can be a whole pile of beliefs on top of these experiences. And those are automatic assumptions right
survival
there.
beliefs, survival beliefs, because it's like I can't take care of myself. I can't walk sometimes, it's like there's a lot of fear there.
It won't last, and this can't kill you. But there's only one way to know that. It can't kill your body anyway. Let's put it that way. And, take the appropriate breaks as they come up. That's okay. You begin every morning. First sensation that you notice, first thought, refer to that sensation. The first sensation is the only thing that exists. It is everything that exists. Every day, if you do that every morning, regardless if you take a break or not, you're breaking the other pattern. You're using a pattern of feeling, which is ironic because we're always feeling, to break another pattern of disassociation.
That's what I'm doing. I wake up all night and it's just, this is ongoing. So, I mean, I'm doing it. I can't,
Perfect.
It feels like I can't do any more than I'm doing. I just.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Look, you're going to hit walls. This is the hokey pokey. You put your arm in, you're going to pull it out. Then you're going to put it in, and then you're going to shake it all about. Then you're going to do the hokey pokey, and you might turn yourself around. That's what this is all about. But eventually you put your whole self in, then you take your whole self out, whole thing. Here's another pointer that might be useful. I was working with somebody, and she was like, I thought I had to stuff myself into the sensation. She's like, then what I did is I just allowed the sensation to be as big as it needed to be, and it just was everything. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. Intuition. Perfect. Let it overtake. This is Buddha sitting at the base of the Bodhi tree. When he felt like he was lit on fire by Mara and he was burning alive, he didn't move externally nor internally. No resistance, avoidance, no aversion, no desire, just burned. And he burned himself into nirvana because everything became the sensation. No more reference. Yeah, it's intense, man. It is absolutely brutally intense.
Yeah.
Remind yourself that it doesn't have to be also. Give yourself maybes in that experience too. This is really painful. Maybe that can help because it breaks up a little bit of certainty there. The more we feel like we know it, though, the more likely it's being imposed.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. In the meantime, let me know if you need anything as you go. Reach out.
Thanks so much.
All right. I'm going to answer a question that was in the chat too. It just says, is every thought an afterthought? And seems to be that way. It seems to be that every thought is on some sort of delay that comes after. Doesn't seem like any thought can arise in the moment. Although, don't take my word for it. Don't ever take my word for it. This is all about tasting the strawberry for yourself. All I do is point. Can't give you anything, but I can point to something that might start to resonate a little bit, and then you get curious, and then you go, ooh, let me go there. That's all. But whatever your experience is, it can't be right or wrong. It just is. So regard whatever you experience as true with the curiosity of, is this it? Is there more? Is it just this? That kind of energy. Is there a bottom to this? Is this solid? That kind of just, ooh, what's this? And eventually there's no dialogue. It's just like Scooby-Doo. All the time with everything. Just like a little kid that's just loving the world and loving life. That's what it's like. You just watch them and like, you know, if you were to put an electronic device in front of a little kid with buttons, you guarantee those buttons are going to be pushed, every single one of them. They're going to figure out everything about that just based on sheer curiosity. That has gone nowhere for any of us. Turn that here into this internal universe. I promise you, the things you discover are worth it. But just keep swimming. All right, let's see. I got Brian and Robert.
Hey, Josh. Good to see you again. It's Brian in DC.
Hello. What's happening?
I wanted to ask you about this kind of common phrase, I think, in spiritual circles and a seemingly common experience that I'm having, which is I had it and I lost it.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. So it's basically like the equivalent of I ate a bunch of mushrooms and then I sobered up. All it is the filter dropped. You were able to completely be engaged. And then because of the habitual pattern of that filter, it just came back. Nothing is lost. It's always here. Can't go anywhere. That's another important experience or reminder for everyone too. Pain goes nowhere. This isn't about eliminating anything. It's not about rejecting or pushing something somewhere else. It's about recognizing that there's a reference taking place that is imposing a sense of separation. You are not separate from what seems to be pain. It goes nowhere, but the relationship changes because this is all paradox. It can't be pain and pain alone. When I was 7 years old, I had a popcorn kernel stuck between my teeth for like 4 days. Finally got it out, and it's all inflamed and red. And I don't know why, I just started going, ow, ow. And then after a while, it was like, oh, feels kind of good, but it kind of hurts. Feels good, kind of hurts. That's what it seems to be. If we poke and prod and experiment and play with what these experiences seem to be, we find that they're absolutely paradoxical. They don't have a single quality at all. And that's all our experience with pain really is, or suffering or discomfort or whatever. It's single-sided, takes a singular quality. That's just evidence that we don't know it. That's all. That maybe we see the surface of something, but we've never held it. We've never become it. But if you become the experience itself, all reference is gone. There's no you, there's no suffering. There's just this. So yeah, if that comes up, just know that there's just a pattern of overlay that's showing up. And really the best approach is just go right to the source of the experience. What's being felt. Likely when we feel like we lose something, a sense of difficulty or a sensation we don't like very much seems to be taking place. And we're doing everything we can to disassociate from that. That's definitely going to make you feel like you lost connection with something.
Yeah, I remember being on Angelo's retreat in Boone in December, and I remember being so clear. I remember one evening walking to the meditation hall and just knowing that this could not be lost. There's no such thing. There's but but 2 weeks later it seems to be eluding me. It seems to be completely gone, and I'm suffering. Same thing happened thanks to John for the music. We went to a concert a couple of weeks ago, and a little bit of inquiry along with the musical performance just took me straight to presence. But and I thought, oh, this is so obvious, and this is so relaxing, and then of course I thought, it's the same thought, like, this, you can't lose this. This is all there is. And then just, it's such a mystery that then it can just seem to.
Yeah. I mean, those mechanisms they can be really subtle. It could be like that whole bullfrog in the boiling water metaphor, where if you put it in the water and you slowly heat it up, it doesn't realize that it gets to a boil. But if you put it in boiling water, it'll jump right out. It can be like that a little bit too. But ultimately, this is the benefit of what we could call practice for a while. That will reach a threshold, but returning home as often as possible, returning to that space of presence, meditating, noticing sensation all the time, regularity of engagement, full-blown, unapologetic engagement. Then we start to see what seems to be a boundary where that switches into mind identification. Because from the position of presence, we see all things arise that are secondary, that are tertiary. And you start to see these particular mechanisms of protection and survival in real time. And that becomes really interesting to just watch them play out, because you didn't notice it before. Because if we're identified with it, we think it is us. So the best space is presence. And really, you already know that, but it seems to be a sensational experience. Even if the sensations don't seem to be really noticeable or taking a very vibrant tone, it's felt. You feel a certain way. You feel engaged. You feel present. There's your indication that it's just a displacement, a disassociation from something. Adyashanti says that once we make it to the top of the mountain is when we take the path back to the village. That's often the retreat experience, is we allow ourselves to reach the peak of the mountain. There's permission here. I don't have to. And then we don't. And then we tend to have a very, very visceral presence. And then we go back to life. And then there's this subtle belief that we don't realize that says, but I got to be this way. There's two worlds here. Challenge that. Notice it. Do you have to? Are there actual requirements there? Because I think what you'll find is the external world, nothing changes, including your efficacy in existing in this relative world doesn't change at all. The only thing that really shifts is the relationship with what this is all the time, perpetually. That there's really never a reason not to feel because it doesn't make sense anyway. It's the most effortless experience we have as human beings. It just happens. So why avoid it? Obviously, in a state of survival, an actual state of survival, that's different. But I don't see a bear on the couch with you. Oh, my bad.
Josh, can you talk a little bit more about becoming the sensation? I really liked what the person you had the interview with that said, let that sensation get as big as the world. That really resonated. I want to try that. Do you have any other ways that you put it?
The way I would say it is like there's a lot of hows that start to show up, but when it comes to this kind of subtlety, it's going to be intuitive. Be open and willing to experiment with every possible way to engage sensation. So if it feels like you're on the outside looking in, touch it. Is there a boundary? Can I feel like an edge? Can I feel like an edge? If you're on the inside, but it still feels somewhat removed, see if you can search for a boundary of something outside. Is there something other than this? Is there an emptiness outside of the sensation, or is there another sensation? It's exploring anything that may seem like you could define it. Does it have a specific shape? Does it always hold that shape? Is it moving? Is it changing? It's just playing, play. Is it somewhere else? Is it only here? Is it in the body? Is it out of the body? Is it both? These kinds of energetic senses of curiosity, really, it starts to begin to take its own tone, and then we just go with it, like improv. It's just boom, and then it's doing something, and we're with it. And really, Adyashanti talks a lot about dance. He uses the word dance a lot, and it's such a beautiful metaphor because this reality is like dancing with a partner that if we are moving perfectly in sync, if we close our eyes, we don't have a perception that there's a partner there at all because it's synchronization. What you feel is the universe itself. It's everything. You're feeling yourself and the universe simultaneously. You are synchronizing with everything, nothing, everything, nothing. Just by feeling that it's a gift. It's what makes us God, but not God alone. And to become it, you will just notice you will naturally become it. I don't want to put too much of a strategy in place because it's going to have a different flavor for all of our relative experiences. But I promise this, you just know what you know, 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 what you know. And it's not here. But that voice that's been calling, you'll just hear it again and go, oh, hello.
Yeah, curiosity. That's very helpful. I got that.
Curiosity, great friend. And, engaging in that curiosity, you're also engaging in almost every aspect of true nature as well. Intuition, creativity. Oftentimes there's a sexual energy there, free expression, courage.
Just so amazing.
Nice to see you.
Really appreciate you.
Yeah, you too. All right, Irene.
Great. Hi, thank you. There's been so much movement, even as I'm just sitting here and being with everyone sharing. And I'm noticing that my family is my family of origin is a very small tribe now. 3 brothers, 2 sons, 1 niece, and 2 great nieces. And at the moment, almost every person is in crisis mode. I mean, one brother is going into hospice care. One brother is on his 3rd surgery in 3 weeks. Another brother has a pinched nerve and can't move in bed. I have a great niece who's cutting herself. She's 16. And the father of my son who's in the hospital on day 21 with renal failure and 2 strokes. And so just holding space. And I'm on the other side of the country, so there's a lot of phone conversations and just being with people who are in crisis mode. It brings forward a lot of sadness. And trusting that everyone is is where they need to be. And I noticed that there seems to be a falling away here of self-care. The body is not motivated to exercise in any way, to take a walk. There's some more sugar consumption than normal, than usual. And so I'm just, you were talking about just being, what I heard you say was, or what I understood was, just let the body do its thing, basically, right? But the body is not, body is staying pretty sedentary, and I'm just wondering how to move with that. How to move with sedentary.
I mean, that's a good question. You know, besides all the details of what seems to be happening within the family, you pointed right to the experience itself. There's a sense of sadness there. And then to explore that and to continue to go maybe beneath the interpretation of those sensations, that's really all this is. And then everything else is compensatory. It's attempting to compensate. The consumption of sugar is what we do when we respond to stress or to a sensation. And all it's attempting to do is, for some reason, especially sugar, when we fill our guts with sugar, it actually starts getting a little numb. We don't notice the sensations as much. It acts as a drug, and it's easier to not pay attention to what's firing up there.
Mm-hmm.
Other food consumption can be that way too. It's just a response. What would it be like if you didn't engage with the response? If you just sat with what you felt? And I think what you would notice is there wouldn't be a freeze taking place or a lack of motivation per se for as long as of a period of time. But it's just a stress response. And it's really not about what we do with it. It's just about getting as close to the initial fundamental experience as much as possible. And whatever it is, even outside of thought, you're feeling something. There was a point where this character really believed that empathy was suffering with others. When I'd see somebody else suffer, there would be a suffering here. But that's not quite it. It's compassion as being as present as possible with all things, with all people, regardless of what they feel. And sometimes there's nothing that shows up, but that doesn't mean there's not compassion. We don't have to suffer together for there to be value there. So that's just another reminder. You don't have to suffer. You don't have to be sad, but if you are, that's what we approach. That's what's true to you now.
Mm. Another
benefit of an experience here too is just allow yourself to place a for now addendum to these experiences. For instance, I'm sedentary for now. All things change. It won't remain this way.
Mm-hmm.
But when there's a fundamental sense of resisting something, some people do this, some people get really busy. It's the same mechanism ultimately, saying, I just don't want to feel something. This is how I'm coping with this sensation. I think you are at a point in this path where you are beyond coping. You don't need to cope. That's just a pattern now.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you.
These external experiences also, sometimes there's a benefit of just keeping momentum anyway. I don't feel like it. Do it anyway. Is there a sensation that arises there? I mean, there can be a benefit to exploring through playing in this external experience as well. You know, some
Mhm.
people are have become very good at being complacent and kind of remove themselves from social circles and things like that. And what they find sometimes is that every sensation or whiff of a sensation at first glance is painful. They just start experiencing a lot more pain sensationally. And it makes sense because the more complacent we become, it's like imagine being in a coma, you know, for years and all of a sudden opening your eyes one day. It's probably going to be really bright.
Yeah.
So the more you allow yourself to feel purely, and what I'm meaning is it's not like pure or impure, but without as much narration, and or if there is narration, just notice it and come back, notice it and come back continuously, die all the way into that feeling. And I think what you'll find is it really has nothing to do with all the things that seem to be happening out here. It was already present, but now you have a reason, so it's easier to access. That's identity does that all the time. But of course, everyone is exactly where they need to be because there's no other option.
Right.
So there's no point in attempting to even find solution there. Just be with them. And truly, when
Yeah.
people are suffering, they just want to be, they just want to be with, they just want to be present with someone.
Right.
Easy to
And
get hugs and love from a distance without
yeah.
having to suffer on their behalf.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it just feels like being a big wide open vat, and it's like just pour it right here, because mostly they're doing just I'm listening mostly,
Yeah. And if
and being present and listening.
that seems to affect something on an emotional level, that's already present, I promise.
Yeah.
And actually, what a benefit. What a wonderful thing, because it's bringing something up that we can absolutely engage with.
Yeah.
And what would it be like to die into that sadness, to get into the sensations, to feel the dropping, the swirling, the sense of emptiness that might be there? It's always a message. It's always a finger pointing toward that which is at the center of it all.
Mhm.
This.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
challenge. There's a challenging here. The resistance to go do anything or the resistance to eating a certain way. Just ask, is this action or non-action a compensation for something else? And if you get a whiff of something else, go there. If it's not, you're in effortlessness and you're being moved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very clear.
And sometimes we don't see that it's a compensation and we say it's not. That's okay. Ask anew every time, though. We didn't learn something that we can just put in the pocket. It's brand new every time. Is this an action that's compensating for something else? And then maybe it pops up that time. Doesn't mean anything. You just go there. Before you know it, this kind of engagement becomes absolutely effortless. It becomes almost like a game of existing. Ooh, what's this? Ooh, what's this? Ooh, there was something that spun in there. When that guy flipped me off and called me, a bleepity bleep, there was a little spin in there. Now that's interesting. Go there. Doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And I think what you'll notice is if we don't engage the narrative machine as often, or we notice it, but we don't keep building into the story, it just tends not to fight as hard.
Yeah.
And so eventually we don't really hear anything, or it's like wallpaper or background music. And then
That's
yeah,
That's pretty much how it is. It's like a gentle stream just in the background. There's very little attention paid to thought in general.
there is nothing better than crisis though, because
Yeah,
crisis, we get unavoidable experience and
that's right.
just go there. I know it almost sounds sick to some people, but when shit
No.
hits the fan here, it's just like, yes,
Great.
what's this going to be like?
Yes. Yes, I totally can get that. I totally see that no matter what shows up, everything is a gift and everything is innocent and everything is a gift, and it doesn't matter how it looks. It's all a gift.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good just a reminder, because it's easy in crisis to forget that.
And notice that too, because it'll play both sides of the coin. Is that compensating for something? Is that attempting to lessen what I'm experiencing?
It is.
This is exactly how it plays. That's why
Yeah,
every opportunity you have, is this compensating for something? Because it wants you to be on this side of what it says there is a coin, or this side of what it says there is a coin. But ultimately, it's the same mechanism that it says, don't pay attention to this.
gotcha.
So that's okay too. You know, a lot of people want to see experiences through love and light and acceptance. There's no need. Just see it as it is.
Yeah,
And if it seems like it sucks, okay, good. Be with what sucks until you don't know it anymore, until you don't know that there's a you experiencing that. That's all it is. It's just forcing a sense of reference and separation constantly.
yeah. It's like there's no, in a sense, no stable place to stand.
Yeah. Yep. There's
Yeah.
nothing solid.
Yeah,
There's no conclusion. Even that can't be true.
yeah, yeah. Good, good. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Anybody else have anything? John, would you like to say anything, or anybody have any questions for John? Maybe. Thought I'd just throw that out. I know we're over.
I just want to say thank you to everyone, especially those of you who had questions or spoke. I really felt like with most of them I could listen as though that was the reality here. So appreciate that.
I'll just check. John, do you have a recording of the Heart Sutra?
No, I don't.
Okay. No worries. I just thought you might. No worries. Thanks.
No, I'm curious. What were your thoughts on that?
Oh, I just somehow came to mind that maybe I had Josh play this extraordinary version of the Heart Sutra. I thought you may have been the artist who made the recording. So yeah, maybe I got the artist incorrect.
Okay. Oh, I'll have to listen to that anyway. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, that was Rodrigo. His name is Rodrigo Rehers.
Okay.
And he is a monastic I think he's in the Netherlands.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And the shares today were just all the way. They were all the way in there. And so, thank you all for coming as you are and being just vulnerable and open. And really that's the name of the game here, as often as possible, until there's no more hesitation or resistance or avoidance around that. So I'm so grateful for all of you for sharing with me today. And I look forward to seeing you if you're interested to come to Ouroboros. That will be on the 24th. There's information on social media and things like that. We'll probably send out another email too. But in the meantime, I really, really appreciate all of you, and thank you for coming today. All right, then.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you, Josh. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.